just about to put together kind of the final assembly on our previously rebuilt eBay turbo. And to give you an idea of what happened with that guy, here's the original compressor cover. So you can see that it scattered the compressor wheel. That eBay level of balance did not seem to appreciate like 28 pounds of boost. So it came apart, but that's okay because we got it back together better than ever. But we'll take a look at modifications that have been done to a couple housings that we're prepping. Our kind of standard plus rebuild, and then a high flow version I'm going to put together with the housing on the left and that billet wheel. And some differences between the types of eBay turbos available. So let's get into it. So first off, we got our MaxPeing Rod classic eBay turbo, and it's denoted by MaxPeing Rod cast right into the compressor cover. So the first thing I've done here is I went ahead and kind of filed in and cleaned up the MaxPeing Rod logo. I actually initially went to get rid of it altogether, but decided I wanted to keep it. So if you look at the original logo on the bottom there compared to our filed in logo at the top, I'd got rid of some material on the X and the little racing stripes, gave it like a cleaner kind of 80s style look. And I think that's going to look good once we get it coated. But the reason I've got MaxPeing Rod and our regular generic eBay Gt3582 covers out, so they're all the same 0.7 AR housing, and they're very similar generally. But one thing I notice is the overall machine work and casting on the MaxPeing Rod is superior. So first off, 8mm holes versus 9mm holes on the anti-surge for the other cover. I'm going to use the generic eBay cover for our kind of low flow build. I'm going to use MaxPeing Rod for the high flow build. So taking a look at our generic style, the ways that it is superior to, or sorry, less superior to the MaxPeing Rod, it's a little bit hard to see, but down in the bottom of the compressor cover, there's more like casting flash and imperfection in casting. So this type of stuff. It's not as smooth in the sand cast. I also noticed that the anti-surge port is much wider. Not really causing an issue, but definitely unnecessary. Generally on MaxPeing Rod, or sorry, eBay GT35s, this little cut, this kind of return orifice for anti-surge should probably be a little lower in this actual housing. It's at the very top, the very tip of the blades, which isn't ideal. But the main thing about these eBay turbos generally, including MaxPeing Rod, and it'll be very hard to show, but down in here, and I've already cleaned it up in all three of these, you can kind of see a little bit, where they drill those holes into the cover for your anti-surge porting, they will leave a ton of machine material, burrs, like I'm talking large burrs, large enough to be sucked into the turbo and jam it up. If they make it through the turbo without damaging anything, which at the speeds the turbo spins, I'm going to say would be rare. But even if they make it into your engine, like, do you want to be consuming metal flakes? So be looking there for burrs. Inside generally, the other two places I always find them is this hole. So the rest of these bolt holes bottom out. This hole passes through into the cover. So very common. In fact, this one has a couple. Just waiting for the camera to focus, but a couple of burrs at the end of those threads. Super common. Also, Real common to find burrs on the backside of this guy. So you just want to go in and deburr everything. That is going to be probably the #1 cause of failures on these eBay turbos. Get rid of that immediately. But once you've done the work, you can create something like this. So this guy, I've bored out and honed out all the different holes for anti-surge. I've gone through with a pick. I've picked out all the little bits of metal and then done some just very light porting in a couple of ways. So all these edges in, so a nice curvature into the anti-surge, and then also just a nice curve into the tunnel where your compressor wheel is going to be. Comparing that to unported, it's just a straight cut, a little attempt to bevel. It's okay, to be honest, but there's a bit of a lip right there. So just going ahead and smoothing all that out, making it real nice. Once you get down to the wheel area, you're not going to port anything. You don't want to touch those clearances at all. But what I got set up here, so let's take a look at our mostly unadulterated eBay turbo. And this one had a flange welded on and then cut off, but it's just your cast outlet hole. Kind of get an idea of the size. Going from that to kind of a standard airflow style port job, which is really just getting rid of the casting imperfections, making it nice and circular and smooth. And then our slightly superior MaxPeing Rod, we've got a more significant port. So I didn't want to go crazy on this. I didn't think it'd be necessary, but opening it up a good couple millimeters, smoothing it out all the way deep inside. So you got a nice smooth air outlet. So what I'm going to do with this guy is throw on a billet wheel. And this is individually balanced, so you can see balance marks here. There's going to be a couple on the back. But individually balanced piece, and I'll attach that to a individually balanced turbine shaft to create our overall turbo assembly. This one from a previous video, nicely rebuilt, but the nut, shaft, and cast wheel were all balanced together, so I preserved that. And we're going to run this for our low flow variety, though this turbo is still going to make like 350 horse, maybe 4. This turbo is going to make 450, maybe more. And the main reason, beyond the minor differences in the wheels used, this guy's a 0.63 AR rear housing. This guy is a 0.82. So bigger rear housing, less back pressure, and it's going to flow more out of that turbine housing at higher shaft speeds, so allow us to run more power at the same boost level. So with that, I'm going to stick this housing on our completed turbo, get that together, and then we'll take a look. For our lower flow assembly here, I'm going to stick with this little silicone ring. And it does a great job of sealing your front cover to your rear. Good thing to have. However, it does create about a 0.5 millimeter of extra clearance between the sides of your blade and the bottom of the housing right here. So for this one, I'm just going to slap it together and assemble it. For our high flow version, I think I'm going to actually use a bit of clay on the blade and assemble it together, then disassemble it and determine our clearance without this ring. And I'm going to see if I can run a tighter clearance to housing on the higher flow turbo. See if we can get a little bit more out of it by perfecting the clearances. But for this guy, let's keep it simple and just throw it back together. So not much to it, just looking down our hole, making sure not to scrape anything and definitely not to drop anything. and just carefully slipping it right on. So, I mean, this is a difference you're going to notice with OEM or performance aftermarket and eBay, is just those clearances are definitely wider on the eBay turbos. But we'll go ahead and kind of clock this a bit. Try to put it in a position I think it might be okay. So actually I'm going to go this way. And I won't completely clamp this together, but I'm going to have my inlet on one side and outlet directly out the other side just for now. It'd be kind of common, or I'll offset it slightly, kind of common on, you know, like a top mount style manifold that this might be used on. That's all that there is. And then now, just getting my clamps together. Got my old gasket here. Always worth it to keep all these gaskets when disassembling, because some of these rebuild kits do not come with new gaskets, so worth it to keep these. But I got my bolts and my kind of clamping plates. So just going to go place these and thread in the bolts. Got the clamping plates on and the bolts just nice finger snug. This is likely to require clocking prior to actual use, so we're just going to leave it there for now. But all I'm going to do is throw my front end cover on for protection. Go ahead and flip it. And then just reach down, give this a couple spins, make sure everything feels good. And I'm not sure if you can hear it now, but it's normal for a new journal bearing turbo to kind of ring like a bell when you jiggle the, giving you a chance to hear that. When you jiggle that turbine back and forth, it's just the dry bearings inside touching a little bit. And that'll go away once you fill it up with pressurized oil, but it's the effect of the housing acting like a megaphone, essentially, and amplifying things you couldn't hear when you're spinning that CHRA by hand. You can now suddenly hear them very audibly. So don't be alarmed. I've been alarmed before. But after I did like 30 of these and every single one made that noise, wasn't so worried about it anymore. So that was a quick video. And there we got it. We got rebuilt, ported, ceramic, anti-surge improved eBay Gt3582. This is our first version. Went ahead and stuck a bunch of fittings on it. So I got AN8s, I believe, for water feed, AN10, oil discharge, just some silicone stoppers in the oil feed right now so it doesn't leak down too much. But looking good. 0.63 or 0.64 AR rear housing. Everything fits beautifully. Let's give it a spin test. So yeah, again, listening carefully. I can barely get my fingers on it. It's spinning real freely, real nice. So this thing's ready to go. It's going to be better than anything you're going to buy on eBay. If you're doing all the work yourself, it doesn't cost a ton either. So I want to say I'm like $300 into this whole turbo. Very worthwhile for the power it can make, and highly recommended. So stick around for the next build. I've got to sandblast out the center cartridge. I got it all torn down. We'll rebuild it up with a bearing kit, finish porting on the front housing, some ceramic work, get the billet wheel in there. But if you're liking the videos, obviously drop a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll be at you with the next one real soon.